The character design in League of Legends sucks. Well, at least in the beginning. The video game League of Legends released with 17 champions who have all gotten a redesign over the years so they fit better into the new state of the game. Except for 2. I kindly asked one of the elite champion designers when Jax and Teemo are finally getting their redesign, and to my surprise, he actually responded. Redesign one of them yourself. If it's good enough, we might actually put it in the game, and you might have a job as a character artist. I guess I have to combine the 6 most powerful tools to get the job done. Photoshop for the concept art. For the splash art, I'm going to use Stable Diffusion. I have a few smaller ideas to speed up the 3D modeling process, and for the ability design and testing, I'm going to use Unreal Engine. I'm sure I can figure out how to code the abilities and showcase the final result. So here's my concept for the new version of Teemo. He's very similar to Tristana, another character who's conveniently part of the same race and also already has gotten her redesign. So I used her body shape as the base and added Teemo's unique features to make him, recognizable. I changed a few things here and there, gave him an actual backpack and attached his telescope to his belt. The elongated body really helps with the readability of the character, especially in game where you see the character from a top-down perspective. But this is only one of 3 looks that he's gonna have at the end. Before we get into those, let's create the splash art using Stable Diffusion. I've never really used an AI before to create images, so the first thing I needed to figure out is how to actually get the results that I want. The plan is to let the AI do 90% of the work, so results like these are not going to be enough. Using Stable Diffusion is like explaining to your grandpa what the internet is. You say A, they understand Z. I didn't expect much from the first prompts, but at least it's going in the right direction. I found this prompt guide which should help me get closer to the end result that I'm looking for. I found this website that shows what other people came up with and which prompts they've used. What if I copy some of these? There we go. I think that's a good one to go further with. Now I can let Stable Diffusion create a few more iterations of that image to keep the general composition. The biggest problem seems to be the face. So what if I put his actual face on? Aha! Now it's time to bring it into the splash art format, and with the final AI generated image, it's time to do a few touch-ups. Transferring the 2D concept into 3D is actually surprisingly easy because the basic shapes are already defined. Now I just need to use some basic shapes to trace the silhouette and merge all the pieces together in scope mode. And now for my next trick, soft wrap. I've shown what it does in my previous videos, but if you haven't seen those, remodel him very broadly, let soft wrap do its thing, and we have a game ready model. By duplicating parts of his geometry, I can create the pants, gloves and boots, and modeling the rest of the armor wasn't that hard either. Because League of Legends is playable on the lowest end homegrown potato PC imaginable, the characters themselves don't have that much geometry. What makes them look so detailed are the textures. But that's also where one of the biggest problems lies for me. Painting in Photoshop is great because you can split your art into multiple layers. This way you can hide certain layers or determine which layer is on top of the other one, which gives you just generally more flexibility and security. Blender doesn't have that.
Texture paint. When is that coming, by the way? There is work going on. One of the strategic targets for 2022 was to have texturing. There is work being done, but apparently it was way more than expected.
So everything I paint is permanent, except with Philogic's PBR Painter Pro. The art style of League of Legends is very painterly, which means that you actually include the highlights, shadows, and so on in your texture. This saves performance because your smart fridge doesn't have to compute all the different complex reflections of the environment. But I have no experience in painting these textures, which makes this process a little scary. Luckily, the creator of the add-on that I'm going to use for this contacted me and offered me an affiliate link plus a free copy for me to test it out. So if you want to get the add-on for yourself and support me at the same time, you can use the link in the description. The layers work just like Photoshop. Create a special shader which creates this mother brain of a node system, and you can add and remove image textures in the add-on interface. I started with a basic color blockout layer, followed by some basic color variations and more detailed highlights and shadows. Afterwards, I saved all the individual texture layers just to be safe and baked, aka combined all the layers into one final image texture. This is the last thing you'll see before you die. In-game, of course. For Kratos in my previous video, I used pre-made Mixamo animations, but for Teemo, I wanted to create my own. But the process of creating the skeleton and animating him is kind of boring, so in the meantime, let's talk about my concept for his abilities and why he has more than one look. 2 of his unique aspects are his swiftness and his camouflage abilities. At level 6, the player has the ability to choose between the scout and the recon aspect. Both not only change the way he looks, but also the way his abilities work to play more into the fantasy that each aspect represents. The scout is all about being quick on the battlefield, so he gets rid of his big backpack, pulls up his pants, and exposes his furry fingers. He can perform his abilities more quickly and is more mobile while using them. Recon, on the other hand, is more about being stealthy and sneaky. He puts on a camel poncho and a mushroom hat so that it's even harder to see him on the battlefield. His abilities have better stealth capabilities, but they also take a little longer to perform. Shout out to this Reddit thread that gave me the idea for this. Speaking of abilities, time to get into Unreal. And that's where things get a little scary. I have successfully avoided coding in Unreal, but I can't really get around it now. One of his current abilities is this. He runs a little faster. What if he turned it into something actually useful like a dodge? First, he needs to do the dodge animation when you press the button. Okay, easy enough. He's supposed to dodge in the direction of the mouse, so I have to capture the position of the mouse and launch him in that direction. Pretty simple. He's also supposed to look in the direction that he's dodging into, so I need to capture the direction he's looking into, the position of the mouse, how much he needs to rotate to look into the direction of the mouse, and then actually rotate him into that direction. I guess that works. His ultimate ability lets him place mushrooms that if enemies step on it, explode and poison them. I think that one's pretty iconic to him, so I didn't want to change it that much. First, I need a mushroom placeholder. Track the position of the mouse and place the mushroom underneath the mouse. And last but not least, he has a blinding dart for his first ability. I think that one is also pretty unique to him, but I wanted to turn it into a skill shot. The only problem with that one is that you can only really blind the target that is closest to you. So I changed its functionality a bit. Figuring out how to shoot the projectile wasn't really a huge problem. I also wanted him to be able to use the ability while running. I know how to rotate him in the right direction, but he always immediately turns around again. Okay, this can't be that hard to fix. I did it! Yes, finally! I've tried so many things to allow him to shoot while running. Big thanks to Z-Axis from my Discord server for giving me a few inspirations and helping me out. And now I'm finally able to fully utilize the power of Unreal Engine. I want to showcase my design on the actual League of Legends map. I actually found a way to extract the files from the game. So I just need to download it, get the programs, extract it, or I can just grab them off Sketchfab. I'm glad I checked. Yes, there it is. Everything is in place for the final presentation. Welcome to Teemo's redesign Spotlight. Guerrilla Warfare, his passive ability, allows Teemo to become invisible after standing still or being in a bush for a few seconds. After leaving invisibility, his attack speed increases for a brief moment. His first active ability, Precise Blow, allows Teemo to shoot a strong bolt in any direction, and its damage scales with the missing health of the target. He can use this ability while running, and hitting an enemy reduces the cooldown of his second ability, Tuck and Roll. This ability gives Teemo increased movement speed while out of combat, and enables him to dodge a short distance in any direction, making him untargetable for the duration of the animation. Toxic Treats, his third ability, allows his auto attacks to poison enemies. The damage of this poison stacks up to 5 times with every consecutive auto attack, and every 5th hit does bonus damage. The first part of Teemo's ultimate ability, Functional Fungus, gives him mushrooms that he can place on the ground. He can carry 3 of them at the same time, and if an enemy steps on it, the mushroom explodes. The second part lets him specialize in the way he wants to fight, adding new benefits to each ability. Scout mode is all about speed. He gains increased movement speed in bushes, and his first ability now slows the hit target. With Tuck and Roll, you can now dodge farther, and the movement speed buff out of combat is increased. Every 5th hit of Toxic Treats now also gives you a small attack speed buff. In Scout mode, his mushrooms have a shorter cooldown, but also a significantly decreased duration. He can throw the mushrooms, and if he steps on them, can use them like bounce pads to quickly move around on the battlefield. The explosion of the mushroom leaves behind a small area where enemies get poisoned and slowed. Recon mode improves Teemo's ability to be stealthy. It now takes a brief moment for Teemo's invisibility to disappear. After hitting an enemy with his Precise Blow, he becomes untargetable for a brief moment. Also, while being invisible, Tuck and Roll does not break invisibility, allowing him to stay invisible for even longer. His poisonous auto attacks now spread to surrounding enemies on every 5th hit, prioritizing champions. And last but not least, his mushrooms have a longer cooldown and cast time, but they stay on the ground for a long time. In this mode, he cannot throw the mushrooms, but the explosion leaves behind a bigger area that now weakens targets.
What did it cost?